Oh, it's so nice that baseball season is back. The sun is shining, the ball players are out in the field. It's just a wonderful time to go watch a game at a ballpark. And, well, the Chicago Cubs are in full swing. They're through their first month of the season. Gotta say, after a bit of a shaky start to open the year, hasn't looked too bad. How's it going, everybody? I'm Alex, and welcome to the Chicago Sports Corner. Today, it's the first Cubs video of the season. I'm doing a monthly recap yet again this year. I mean, a little bit of a recap is necessary to kind of get to where we're at now because the Cubs didn't have a great start to the season. They did not win that opening series at home against the Washington Nationals. But, to be fair, we did see that the Nationals did have a strong start this year. The first half of April for them was pretty nice. They ended up sweeping the Brewers. So, all the feelings of, man, we lost a series to Nationals start the year, they kind of go away a little bit, but it still wasn't a great start to the year. The Cubs' lone win was nice, 10-2, but they surrendered 10 runs on opening day and lost by 6 and then lost the series finale. So it wasn't a great start, but here come the LA Angels to come into Wrigley Field for the first AL team the Cubs play this season. And as expected, the Cubs went out and won that series. 2 controlling wins, winning by 5 runs on Monday and then winning by 4 runs on Wednesday while losing the middle game 2-0. The Angels have not been a good baseball team this year, but they have had a nice surprise in Soriano. He's been pretty good, and they dodged when Joe Adell decided to become God for a game and robbed 3 home runs, and Joe Adell had a really nice stretch right after as well. So they dodged that, but still a nice rebound. You win that series. You were expected to win that series. You go out and handle business. Losing a game sucks, but that's baseball. Then you go to Cleveland for your first road series against the Guardians, lose the first game, and then after the game on Saturday gets postponed, you have a double header on Easter Sunday. You win the first one 1-0 in a very close one, and then you proceed to blow it. I mean, literally, they blew it with terrible relief pitching at the end of the game. They lost by 1 run. They had, if I remember correctly, it was like 5-3, and they proceeded to blow it in the 8th, and it was just, oh boy, that was not a good one to leave Cleveland on. And continuing the road trip, they'd head down to Tampa, where despite losing the first game, they'd rebound and put together 2 nice performances and win that series. So at this point, you're pretty much at a dead even split, but with how well the team played in April last season against really stiff competition, this does feel like a bit of a letdown to start the year. Especially when you consider that there were some games that they probably could have found a way to win. They had a couple nice wins, but there were a couple bad losses in there. You then come back to Wrigley Field to play the Pittsburgh Pirates, who have proven that they're not going to be a pushover this year. The Pirates have been a pushover for a decade. I think that they've got a relatively nice team. They could be a sneaky team to get into the postseason and maybe even challenge to win the NL Central, especially at that point as they came in, 2 weeks into the year. We know now that the NL Central is going to be a bloodbath, but going into that series, the Pirates were, if I remember correctly, winning the Central Division, and they were coming in at Wrigley, and they played very well to start. They won the first game and then won in extras, and that one was a pretty brutal one to lose. Cubs then were trailing 6-2 on Sunday, the last game of the series. And you're just sitting there like, we are about to get swept by the Pirates. Maybe they are the real deal, right? I mean, they should have already earned your respect by taking the first 2 games. But now you're down 6-2. And you find a way to rally and win that game in walk-off fashion. That was huge. Dansby Swanson comes through for the Cubs. And I believe that was the turning point because that's the halfway point of April here. The next 5 series they were going to be playing were against the Phillies, Mets, Dodgers, and Padres. They'd play the Phillies twice. Now, going into these series, these were teams that were touted to be really good. And, of course, massive payrolls for the Phillies and Mets. And the Dodgers and Padres have been contenders. The Dodgers are back-to-back World Series champions, and the Padres have always been a competitive team in the National League in the 2020s. Hell, you just had to play them in the NL wild card last season. So, you go into Philadelphia, and you get smoked in the first game. Great start. Kyle Schwarber took Javier Assad for a ride. Philadelphia's offense was clicking in this game. 13 runs scored by Philadelphia. Bottom line is, you allow 13 runs, you're not winning that baseball game. Very rarely do you win those games. But that would be the last slip-up the Cubs would have for over a week, as both the Phillies and the Mets, with those abhorrently large payrolls, just fell apart. Call it weak schedule, call it playing against two, fractured franchises right now, whatever you want to call it. Winning 10 games in Major League Baseball is very hard. The last time the Cubs won 10 in a row, doesn't matter who was against, just period. The last time they won 10 in a row was 10 years ago in 2016, which was the last time the Cubs won the World Series, which, hard to believe that is going to be 10 years old here in just half a year. After losing that game in Philadelphia, the Cubs rattled off two emphatic wins, 10-4 and 11-2. Their offense was clicking, and they were able to take the Phillies pitchers for a ride. And I got to say, that was very nice to see. You allow a ton of runs. Losing 13-7 really sucks because it proves that your pitching staff was not getting it done. And sometimes that can be more frustrating than losing in a 3-2 ball game, right? Because your pitchers were doing well. And at this point, the Cubs pitching was just decimated. I mean, seriously, look at the red. There's so many guys on the IL. There's still so many guys on the IL for the Chicago Cubs on the pitching staff. They just are decimated. Cade Horton went out on just like what looked like a routine play. He's now probably going to get Tommy John. He's done for the year and probably longer. Justin Steele just got shut down probably a week ago at this point for another month and a half. I saw the post from Justin Steele. He's not happy. So you got two starting pitchers that are down, and then all these relievers that are down as well. This pitching staff can't stay healthy. I don't know what's going on with the training staff, but something's got to be done because this is ridiculous. So when you see the Cubs run over teams 10-4 and 11-2, that's nice. You then come home to play the New York Mets, who are in the midst of a brutal losing streak. If I remember correctly, yes, it was at 8 games going into this series. They controlled that game and dominated them 12-4 on Friday in their first time wearing the baby blue City Connect jerseys, which are very cool, by the way. And then they're losing in the 6th. Freddie Peralta gets pulled. Carson Kelly, 3-run homer. The Cubs win 4-2. That's the 10th in a row for the Mets that they've lost. And then it looks like, man, it's going to happen. Cubs are going to lose the winning streak. They'd won 4 in a row. The Mets have lost 10 in a row. It's going to break eventually. You don't want it to be against the Cubs, but you've already got the series win. You're losing 1-0 in the bottom of the 9th. And it's Michael Conforto, a new Cub, who finds a way to get it into right field, into the corner, brings home the tying run, and then in extras, Nico Horner out to right center. Pete Crow Armstrong scores. Game over. Cubs sweep. They've won 5 in a row and put the Mets down to their 11th loss in a row. Look, over the last couple years, I've never seen the Cubs' problem as their position players. Maybe 1 or 2 positions. I know there was a third base and first base hole for a while once Bryant and Rizzo left, but I feel like that's been filled now. Michael Busch specifically filling the first base hole in a great way, and now they just signed Alex Bregman to be their third baseman, and I think that that's huge as well. And it proved vital because even then, you still have PCA and Ian Happ in the outfield, and Seiya Suzuki / Matt Shaw out in right field, depending on the day and what Craig Counsell wants to go with. It's like they have great position players. They can really help out their pitching, get out of some scenarios, and they played excellent at home against the Philadelphia Phillies in that 4-game series. which they swept 5-1, 7-4, 7-2, and then they won 8-7 on a walk-off in extras to win the series, to sweep the series. They already had the series won. But they played the Phillies 7 times in, a week and a half? 6-1. You lost the first game, they won the next 6 against them. The winning streak's at 9 in a row now. And now, you leave home to go to Southern California and take on 2 of the toughest teams in the National League, the Los Angeles Dodgers and the San Diego Padres. And look, I thought the winning streak was going to lose in their first game against the Dodgers. I was like, they won 9 in a row. The Phillies and Mets are both in a free fall in April here. Somehow with their payroll being that high, I can't explain it. But I was like, look, the Dodgers also have a massive payroll, but they're not in a free fall. They're back-to-back World Series champions. This is going to be a tough series. I wouldn't be surprised if they lose the first game. And it looked like they were going to. They're down 4-0, and then they find a way. They found a way to come back in this game. Down 4-0 going into the 7th inning, it's Dansby Swanson who hooks a triple to score 2 runs for the Cubs. And then Nico Horner drives Swanson in. So you're already down 1 run going into the 8th. Alex Bregman comes through. He ties the game in the 8th. And then Dansby Swanson, again, in the 9th, out to left field and gone to give the Cubs the lead 6-4, which they would hold on to and win their 10th straight. That was a fantastic win. To come from behind like that against the Dodgers in Dodger Stadium, I'm impressed. But then you have to come back to reality mode because the Dodgers would control thoroughly the next 2 games of the series. They realized, you want to try and come back when we have the lead, not just lay over and take the loss? All right, here you go. 12-4 and 6-0 the final scores in the next 2 games, which suck, but I feel like it was going to happen at some point. The Cubs were going to lose the losing streak. I wasn't expecting it to end as brutally as it did, losing by 8 runs and then losing by 6 in the next game and getting shut out. That one sucks as well. But it is the Dodgers. You're on the road. Again, I have been very happy that the schedule makers have been really nice to the Cubs because they've really not had to play the Dodgers on the road late in the year much in this decade. You have had to go to Dodger Stadium pretty much in April or early May. And I feel like that's really nice because the last thing I want to do in a playoff push is have to play and go win a series in Dodger Stadium. I mean, there was some drama here. I'm not going to lie. There definitely was. Pete Crow Armstrong was mouthing off, calling Dodger fans bandwagons. I think he said something about Kyle Tucker as well. Then you got Dalton Rushing, who, by the way, is like speed running his way to most hated player in the majors. Like, seriously. I forget exactly what he said to Jung-Hoo Lee of San Francisco, but he said something after he had left the batter's box that was not good, and professional lip readers were able to pick up. He said something similar to Miguel Amaya, calling him fat, basically. He had another word after that that's, nice and spicy for those who know. Nico Horner later confirmed that is exactly what he said because he was in the batter's box right after Amaya came up. And he said that he wanted to do something and probably should have done something about it, but for some reason didn't. And I'm not going to hold it against Nico. He's had an unbelievable season so far. He is definitely on a way to being a Gold Glover again. Like, Nico Horner was a guy who I thought was underrated for a couple of years. I was incredibly happy when they signed him that extension. I don't think it was before the season started. It was like right after the season started. I thought it was a fantastic move because Nico Horner is a fantastic second baseman. And last season was the number one guy the Cubs could depend on with runners in scoring position. Nico Horner didn't hit his first home run until June last season. He's got 4 in April. And even though he didn't hit a home run until June last season, he was still one of the best hitters the Cubs had. He was dependable when they had runners on the base paths. He was dependable to just get some good contact to try and start a rally. He didn't need to use the long ball. He was just a great contact hitter, as well as being an unbelievable second baseman, which has apparently only gotten better over the last couple weeks. I mean, the plays that this guy is making is unbelievable. I mean, that play he made against the Dodgers in that comeback was just ridiculous. And so Hoerner has found himself in the leadoff spot for the Chicago Cubs in their batting order, funnily enough, which is a little interesting, but guy gets on at a high rate. You always want to start off with a guy that can just get on base, and Nico Hoerner is definitely a guy that can do that. And so the Cubs make the short trip to San Diego next to play the Padres, and, well, I have some personal experience. I've got to watch 2 of these games, and the Cubs won both of them. I missed the 9-7 loss on Monday, where the Cubs were down 4 runs going into the 9th, had to pitch against Mason Miller, who hadn't allowed a run since August of 25. Regardless of Padres, U.S., didn't matter where he was pitching, he had not allowed a run at any level since August. Cubs scored the first runs on Mason Miller in that inning. I don't believe either of the ones that they scored were earned anyways, but still, runs that came through under Miller's watch. The Cubs would still lose 9-7. There was a bit of a controversial bunt from Matt Shaw that went just a little bit left of the third base line, but the officials called it fair. And I think Shaw came in to score in that inning too, so it was very apparent while I was at the ballpark they weren't happy about it. I had a fantastic time at both of those games. It was just so cool to be at Petco and to see the Cubs play there again. I've made it an effort to try and get out to one game every year when the Cubs come to San Diego. Didn't happen last year. I don't know if it happened in 2024. It might have. But I'm glad I was able to get to 2 of them this year. And they were both super fun to watch. I got to see all of my favorite Cub players, pretty much. Plus, they had a giveaway on Tuesday. I got a Padres beanie. That's cool. I'll be wearing this. It had a removable palm that I decided to remove. I don't know. I might put it back on, actually. I kind of like the way it looks on it. I might put it back on. I don't know. I'll figure it out. But, you know, they were giving it out to 40,000, so pretty much everyone who walked into the ballpark was getting one of these. And it's pretty cool. It's another beanie I get to own. And I get to rep the local team as well. And while I didn't get to Petco last year, I did get to go to Angel Stadium when the Cubs were out there. They were also doing a giveaway for a throwback Angels hat. So I have this too. So I actually, funnily enough, 2 giveaway nights in 2 games that I go see the Cubs. Sure. And it's both headwear. That's great. I'm happy about that. As for the game itself, I didn't get to see Dansby Swanson too much as he came out of the ball game after his first AB. I didn't get to see him steal third, though, as Machado wasn't playing, so that's why they tried it. But it was Dansby Swanson who drove in the first 2 runs of the ball game for the Cubs. That was pretty cool. Got to see him do a little bit of work, and the one moment that he really showed up, because he left with some discomfort, something in his leg, forced him to come out. Nicky Lopez came in and was pinch hit for by Alex Bregman, who didn't start on Tuesday, which was weird. And Bregman came through with an RBI, of course, because he's Alex Bregman. And then, right after, Pete Crow Armstrong has 1 homer all year. He's been criticized. He's definitely been, scrutinized a little bit because he hasn't been hitting at a great rate, despite his fielding prowess still being at the same level it was last year. But lo and behold, I show up and he sends a tank out to center field. That's just unreal. That was just so cool to see. I mean, just got over the wall, 400 feet out in center at Petco, nearly. And that was the icing on the cake. There were no more runs scored after that point. That was the dagger. Got to see the big pitching acquisition the Cubs made. Got to see the big pitching acquisition the Cubs got in the offseason in Edward Cabrera, and he pitched pretty well. So I was very happy to see that. I thought both starting pitchers I got to see, Cabrera and I got to see Jamison Tyone pitch a perfect game for half of the game on yesterday. That was insane. So yeah, got to see PCA make a nice catch in center. Got to see Seiya make a nice catch at right. And the Cubs won on Tuesday night. That was super fun. And then I got to do it again on Wednesday, which was technically yesterday. And sitting out in the sun, first base line, paid the price. Yeah, that's definitely a farmer's tan right there. Not much I can do when I'm sitting out in the sun for 4 hours. Well, actually, here's what I could have done. Brought sunscreen to the park instead of apply it before. That was probably the only way that I was going to get burned. The same deal, on the other hand. Ooh, yeah, that's bad. That's a nice... I got a nice little kiss from the sun yesterday. Got my good vitamin D. Maybe a little too much. But anyways, I got to see Jamison Tyone pitch half of a perfect game. And that was actually crazy to see. I mean, he got through 4 2/3 before Andujar and Castellanos took him deep to tie the game at 3. And so it provided for a little bit of a stressful game, but the Cubs were able to pull out that one 5-4. Tyone went 7 innings. It's definitely his best performance of the season. Tyone is a guy who's either really good or not great. Or, well, not good. He's either on one or off. You just got to get a good Jamison Tyone that day. It's just, he's not the most consistent pitcher, but you can see the potential, and there's a reason why he's still in the starting lineup. And for good reason, because there's still so many injuries on the pitching staff. They'll take anyone right now, but Tyone will still be in the starting 5, I would assume so, when everybody gets healthy. PCA scores Michael Conforto on a ground out. Nice dodge on a tag from Camposano to get home safely. Matt Shaw adds an insurance run, a huge insurance run in the top of the 8th with a homer to left. And then Martin comes out in the 8th inning and walks 3 consecutive batters, all on full count pitches. Get him out. Oh my gosh, that was brutal. So in comes Ben Brown, who has surprisingly played pretty well. He was maligned last season, criticized out the wazoo by Cub fans for his poor starting performances. But as a reliever, he's played much better this season. I think he could still be a starter, but I think that him being a reliever is actually really good right now. He came into the 8th to come in for Martin, and he inherited the toughest situation in baseball. Nobody out, bases loaded, and you're leading by 1 or 2 runs. The only way that it could have been harder is if he's protecting a 1-run lead or the game is tied in the bottom of the 9th or something like that, right? But, Fernando Tatis, up in the air to center, PCA makes the catch in front of the warning track. It kind of died out. Entire stadium started to stand up. They all thought it was gone. PCA makes sure it doesn't happen, though they do score a run. And then Manny Machado right to Matt Shaw, who's taking over at second base with Dansby Swanson out of the lineup. So Horner's over at short. Shaw grabs it, steps on the bag, over to first. Michael Busch records the out. And then on the marquee broadcast, look who's pumped up and fired up after that. That's right, yours truly. I'm over there. I'm having a great time because the Cubs just got out of that jam and they still lead 5-4. Mason Miller comes out in the 9th. Alex Bregman draws a walk, but that'd be the most that the Cubs would get. And then the Cubs shut him down. Ben Brown gets 2 outs. Craig Counsell pulls him. Milner comes in to record the final out, which he does on a check swing, strike 3, and the Cubs come out victorious. So yeah, I had a wonderful time at the ballpark watching the Cubbies pull out 2 big wins over the San Diego Padres. That's a really tough pitching staff to go up against, and to win that series on the road, that's pretty nice. I'm very happy about that. Before we get out of here, let's talk about Moises Ballesteros. Dude, Mo Baller, he's been on a heater. In April, he's hitting over 400. If that excludes the first series against Washington, which is why the average doesn't exactly line up if you go check. But he's been playing out of his mind. He's got 5 home runs. He had a grand slam against the Padres just on Monday. I almost said I missed that. But, Ballesteros has been great. And when he's not catching, he is the DH for the Cubs right now, and there's a reason why. He's got a 1.382 OPS. That is unbelievable. The Cubs signed him 5 years ago out of Venezuela, and it's finally paying off as he's up at the major league level. He got some experience in 2025 as the top prospect that everyone's excited to go see. PCA was that guy a couple of years ago. Now it was Ballesteros last year. And here he is starting pretty much every day. If he's not behind the plate, he's DHing. And he's been such a fun guy to watch at the plate. He might not be a tall guy, but he packs a lot of punch into his 5'8 frame. He is there to do damage and damage only. And then I've touched on Nico Horner and just how great he's been in the month of April. He needs no explanation or introduction. I mean, seriously, it feels like he's been an underrated guy, and Cubs fans knew how good Nico Horner is and how valuable he is to this team, but now it feels like the rest of the league knows that now. That's what's kind of crazy about this month, is that Horner's really made a name for himself on a national stage, I think, as opposed to just within the Cubs fan base here. And Pico Armstrong has not been having a great start to this season. It's definitely looking a little bit more like second half PCA 2025 as opposed to first half 2025 PCA, but it's only the first month. There's still 5 months left of the season. I know there's a lot of people across the league panicking about their teams, but dude, if you look at the National League Central right now, there are only 3 teams in the American League who would not be last place. There would be only 3 teams out of 15 in the American League that wouldn't be last. I don't know. April's overreaction month. Everyone is just so uptight about the starts their team can get. There have been teams that have overcome bad starts in the past. I mean, look at the 2019 Nationals. What were they, 19-35 or something like that? And they won the World Series. So it's not over. It's the first month of the season. There is plenty of time for teams to rebound and get better. But there's also plenty of times for teams who start hot to taper off and then fall out of the picture entirely. So April is just one of 6 months in the baseball calendar. And well, for the Cubs, they're pretty much right around where they were at the end of April last year. Now, the schedule wasn't nearly as tough, so we aren't as optimistic as we were at the end of April last year. I can definitely understand that, and that would make a lot of sense. But I'm just excited that the Cubs are definitely still going to be competitive this year. It wasn't looking like it was going to be great. And the back half of this month was going to be an important stretch to kind of see how this team was going to perform for the rest of the year. And I think that they're going to be, yet again, another team to watch out for in the National League. I mean, the entire National League Central is on notice. I mean, the entire NL Central has put the league on notice. Every single team's over 500. Every single team is playing competent baseball right now. At some point, one of these 5 teams is going to, slow down. I have no idea which one it is. I just hope it's not the Cubs. But over the next week, the Cubs will get the Arizona Diamondbacks at home, and then they'll have their first really big divisional series of the season with 4 games at home against the Cincinnati Reds, who for some reason are the team that leads the NL Central. The Cincinnati Reds have had a great April. You could say they've been getting lucky, that they're playing really fraudulent, they're getting crushed when they lose, but they're winning close. At some point, winning games is all that matters. That's all that matters in Major League Baseball. You get into the playoffs based on how many games you win. And if the Reds keep winning games close while losing when they lose big, they're still winning games. Cubs have a chance to kind of humble them, though. Look, there are so many things to talk about with the Cubs and Major League Baseball as a whole. ABS, I think, has been a fantastic addition to the league. Even though when I went to go to Petco Park, the Cubs barely challenged. The Padres were winning challenge after challenge after challenge. I don't know what was going on with the officials in that game, but apparently it was pretty bad in favor of the Cubs. But that's, I think, what the best part about it is. It humbles everybody. It humbles the officials, but it also can humble the players. Look what's happened with Jazz Chisholm. Dude, the guy cannot get a challenge correct. This thing is getting called a strike right down the middle. He's staring at it, and he's like, nah, that wasn't a strike. And then he looks, say, look at it. It's right down the middle. It's been a great addition to balance out to preserve the human element of baseball while still not completely letting officials dictate the result of games. And I think that to me is what's really nice about it. There's some pressure that comes off the officials, despite, that they can get humbled for making a bad call, but it's not like it's going to decide the game unless the team who gets screwed by it ran out of challenges. Well, then that's their fault. Anyways, I'm going to stop talking. Thank you for stopping by the Chicago Sports Corner today. I hope you enjoyed your time. Please give the video a like if you enjoyed it. Hit the subscribe button if you really liked it and want to see more content from me. Keep the conversation going in the comments section below. Tell me what you think about the Cubs so far this season and just Major League Baseball being back in general. How excited are you? And what do you think about ABS? We're a month into it. What do you think? Is it a good change or is it a bad change? And let me know why. Anyways, that's all I've got, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.